of applause for that amazing last panel with Petey Talley and the Unity Coalition. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware. Are you aware that this is the first in the country live broadcast NAACP workshops and panels that are in conjunction with our brothers and sisters who are inside 2 different correctional facilities. First in the country. So some of the questions and things that you've been receiving are directly from them, and they'll continue to come in today. Because civil rights and social justice does not stop at any point of your journey in America. And we want them to be a part of everything that we're doing right now. So with that, thank you all for spending a little time with us. I'm Tiffany Edwards. In addition to my amazing duties as Freedom Fund Chair, i.e. unpaid professional beggar for the NAACP State Conference and Convention, and strategist therefore, I'm also the founder of a think tank called the State of Ohio Collective. We focus on 6 pillars: education, economic development, housing, tech, the arts, and the sacred sector. The State of Ohio Collective. And one of the things that we want to do is we are really intentional about our collaborations and partnerships throughout the state and making sure that we are engaged in education, economic development, health, housing, tech, the arts, but also in Akron, Canton, Cleveland, Columbus, Youngstown, Toledo, Dayton, and Cincinnati, those large cities, as well as every place else around the state. We have individuals who are representative of the pillars as well as an expert in economic development. Let's give a round of applause for our Chief of Development, Monica Womack, who is here from the state. And also we have Brian Levy, who is here all the way from Silicon Valley to talk to you a little bit about tech. In addition to that, we have Valerie Boyer, who represents the sacred sector, the arts and education. She's from the Columbus area. The indomitable, the dynamic, the amazing, my sister from another mister, Sherry Hamilton, who is the president and CEO of the Ohio Black Expo, in addition to a serial entrepreneur of multiple different businesses, as well as tech and economic development. She also, the Ohio Black Expo engages the entire state as well. So many of you had the opportunity to join us this last year, Memorial Day weekend, and see all the amazing things that happened. But I'm sure she's going to have even more with the work that she's doing in that space. So let's give her a round of applause too. And we wouldn't be anywhere without our health. We have Dr. Nicolette Warren-Poe, who has just been a catalyst for health, as well as economic development change. She has been our boots on the ground up in Youngstown. Also, she travels across the state with multiple different areas and is a public health scientist at Youngstown State University. So needless to say, the microphone's not working. So I will be trying my best to project from my stomach to see, and hopefully you'll be able to hear me. You know, when we think about the 50-year plan and what's needed for our communities and what's next, you know, we have to be intentional with our strategy and what has to happen in order for us to be able to engage in those spaces. So with that, I'm going to kick it off with Minister Mallory Boyer and talk a little bit about the sacred sector and what you think is needed from an intergenerational model. What are we missing? How do we engage Gen Z and millennials effectively so that they will be able to have a seat at the table when it's frequently missing?
Okay. As she mentioned, I am a minister. I also would like to point out I am a millennial. And for clarity, because there is often a lot of debate around this, unless I am 28, I'll be 29 in November, and unless someone was born in December, I'm the youngest of the millennials. Okay, so I'm the youngest, I'm the baby. So to begin at the beginning, I think we need to know that millennials are grown.
Say it again.
Tell the whole truth. I am 28. I will be be 29 in November. Unless someone was born in December, I am the youngest of the millennials, which means that we are grown, okay? We are grown. And while I'm running, now I'm not too grown, like I value my life, right? Like I'm not, you know, if my grandma is watching this, no disrespect. Right? If my grandmother is watching this, no disrespect. But I think more often than not, particularly from a faith standpoint, and I can say this, as minister, as woman, and as millennial, and Gen Z, who most of them are legally grown as well, that if an institution is not thriving, and you are not making room for the younger generations, but instead you are tightening the reins on something that we are all watching actively die, you cannot get mad at us when we no longer want to be a part of the salvation of it. You can't get angry with us when we no longer want to. So I think to begin at the beginning, right? I think the first thing that the faith community as a whole needs to do is to acknowledge that in a lot of ways it is dying and apologize. And I don't just mean that in words. I mean actions mean more than words any day to me. I mean actively take a role of looking at the ways in which we have tightened the reins on things that if we would just loosen up and let go and put it in the hands of millennials and Gen Zers who love it and have benefited from it, but have also paid for it, right? Have also been scarred by it, have also been hurt by it. If you put it in the hands of someone who's interested in salvation, then maybe it won't die.
That part.
So we have to apologize in action. I also think that the other thing that is needed, it's hard to apologize to your children or your grandchildren when you are still harboring guilt and shame for yourself. I think we need to be honest about the ways in which faith spaces have failed us, right? I think we need to be honest. You know, we saw and see. We see our parents and our grandparents and our great-grands, if you've been blessed enough to see that generation of people who have been extremely faithful and still suffering economically, still suffering in health disparity, still suffering in access to resources and education. And so a part of apologizing means that we can no longer expect people to come to us as a faith community. It's the faith community's responsibility to go to the people. If you are of Christian tradition, or really any tradition that has a center or something that you worship, my granny used to say, like, mountaintop experiences are nice, but the real work is in the valley. And we get caught so much on mountaintop experiences, and we stay there almost delusionally that we don't want to go and do the work in the valley. But if you want to survive, and if you want real salvation, you got to go partner with the people. And so if we begin there, if we begin with partnering with the people, hey, there's something about this equation that all of us are getting wrong, right? So how do we work together to get this right? I think that'll be the beginning of what we hope will be a resurrection of what our faith journey looks like.
So with that, do you have, in 2 minutes or less, one big action item that you think the NAACP and the collective could work on over the next 5 years for the sacred sector?
Yes, okay, 3 things. Education, we need to get into schools. No, seriously, we need black teachers, particularly as someone who lives in Columbus. 18% of our teachers are black, but if you look at our district, it's so many, it's way more of us than anybody. And so if NAACP is intentional about creating, curating, and training black-centric educators, right, or educators with cultural adeptness, or partnering with public education spaces to address cultural adeptness, right, because DEI can't just stand for a certain group of people, then that will begin to change it. The other thing that the NAACP can actively be a part of, there are so many development projects that are not happening economically in terms of housing, and gentrifiers are not slowing down. Gentrifiers are not moving slowly. Gentrifiers are not, they are unapologetically asking for money and for dollars that we are sending back, right? So we need to be intentional about training for what that looks like. So education, getting involved economically with redevelopment and asking for the money that is due to us, and then making sure that we have, I got 30 seconds, making sure that we have not just representation in age, right, but also actual representation that are going to model the things that we want. Making sure that we have millennials and Gen Zers in office and in place so that in 20 to 30 years, we still exist.
Fantastic.
I'm going to pivot away from the line a little bit here and go now. She talked a little bit about economic development. So as we're thinking about the 50-year plan and economic development, and we're thinking about what's going to be needed from the housing perspective, unfortunately Thomas Tatum, our housing chair, is not with us today, but I think we can talk a little bit about black business. And I think we can talk about some of the needs and some of the projects and things that currently exist, but also what's going to be needed in that space, both from economic development and also from the tech space. So I want to go all the way over to the end and talk a little bit with Chief Womack about what some of those projects are and things that are currently being done in order to expand some of the things that may exist right now, but some of the things that you're actually actively implementing that will take away some of those barriers to access, and some of the things that we could potentially start thinking about what that implementation looks like over the next year and plans for the next 50 years.
No, thank you for that. Glad I didn't lose because I was asked to come maybe 10 minutes before that.
And she's being honest, it's 100% right.
But I'm glad that I was able to be here to have this discussion. Again, thank you, Tiffany, for all the work that you're doing. Most importantly, thank you, NAACP, for all that you do and historically have done as it relates literally to the advancement of colored people. Within the Minority Business Development Division, we actually have the economic development resources for minority women and other disadvantaged businesses. When we think about what we need today versus what we needed in the past. In the past, our loan programs were really designed for helping businesses in the construction space because the program was designed specifically to assist the state's 15% spend on goods and services, which at that time included construction. The challenge is today, we don't really need as much in the space of real estate and fixed equipment as we need for bodies to work, increased infrastructure, and the ability to actually have working capital. Right now, our loan program only focuses on those fixed assets. So if you are seeking to purchase a building, we can do that 1.5% for commercial use. If you are seeking to purchase equipment, we can still do that, again, 1.5% interest. But we still need working capital and the importance of working capital to be able to help businesses grow. So because the way that the language was written, it's legislative on how we can actually use those dollars. But I'm currently working with Senator Sykes in an effort to actually help to move that so that we can add working capital to that loan program. The ability to provide that support and resource to minority businesses is going to be instrumental. The other piece is around how we also look at real estate. Currently, specifically as it relates to residential real estate, because that's the other piece where we're starting to see. Columbus has a program with the Affordable Housing Trust to actually help Black and brown businesses and female businesses too become developers. What it looks like in that space. So it's the Emerging Developers Assistance Program. And so what, accelerator program, excuse me. And so what they're doing is helping businesses that are historically under-resourced be in a position to be that resource to those areas and those communities. The importance of that is, from our perspective, we focus on commercial real estate. Development properties are not considered commercial real estate. You have a commercial business, but your actual end use is actually for individuals in residential use. So we're having those conversations as well on where to get additional dollars to be able to help those organizations to be able to assist. Because what's happening is the housing crisis is not a crisis. The problem is we don't have enough safe, affordable housing. And the housing that is being built in areas that is not where the jobs are. And so the challenge is, how do we make those connections? So we have Intel coming. Well, actually, Intel is here. Let's not even say it's coming. Intel is here. And because Intel is here, we now have the opportunity. And while they say, oh, we're going to pull everybody from Columbus, that's not really a thing. And we know that that's not a thing. We know that there are going to be people who are coming in from out to be able to fill those jobs that they have. And while the average median income is going to be $135,000, that means that there's some that are going to be really, really high, and there's some that are going to be as high. So where are these individuals going to live to fill all of those positions? So if you're telling me that I live at Broad and Livingston, and then, well, Livingston Nelson, I'm not thinking of where anything else, but Livingston and Nelson, and I need to get all the way up to Licking County, yeah, that's not a thing. Because transportation is the #1 issue that actually plagues individuals in this community. Some people may think it's child care, some people, no, transportation is the #1 issue that's plagued. So how am I going to get from Livingston and Nelson all the way up to Licking County? And how am I going to be able to assist my child if something happens during the day? How am I going to be able to assist a parent? Because all of those things are part of that dynamic. So then from a housing perspective, if you're going to start putting housing in Licking County to support that, now I'm away from everybody? What does that look like? What are the resources that are still going to be there? Well, I can get to work. How am I going to live? And so how are those things that are being a part of these discussions, being a part of what's next? So looking at how we can really support. So from an NAACP perspective, what it looks like is, how are we able to advocate to make sure that the dollars that are coming into this community from the federal government are being utilized in the ways that are actually going to support this community from the federal government? Because we can ask, but we need other people to advocate. We need other people to be in the room to push the mission forward. We need to make sure, oh, and as he's coming into the room with a vote, we most definitely need to do that. That is where, because that's how we drive what our decisions are. That's how we drive what our voice is. We have to make sure that our voices are in the rooms where it's important, where it matters. Other areas that we are looking at as it relates to how we leverage the dollars that we have at the state level, we've leveraged certification not just from a contracting and procurement perspective, but we are able to do our maximum interest rate for a certified business is 1.5%. No one is beating that. And we don't pull credit. So that barrier to help businesses is also being removed. Because we understand that credit can always be a barrier in Black and brown communities. But if your business is actually excelling and you are able to show that you can actually not only support the debt that you currently have, but the new debt that you're looking to acquire, and you're going to be able to cover it for the life of that loan, we are able to do that. And so the importance in that is looking at certification, not just from a procurement perspective, but if you actually are looking to buy a business and it makes more sense for you to actually put that building in your real estate investment company's name, currently your real estate investment company doesn't have a product or a service. So because it doesn't have a product or a service, it's not actually considered a certified business because it didn't produce anything. It's not providing a service. It provides a service to you because it's helping you from a tax advantage perspective. But if we're looking at ways to create generational wealth, the way that we're able to actually create assets for them to pass down, leveraging our certification in a way that also allows opportunities for us to say, hey, you're looking for certification, you have no desire to ever do a state contract, and that is perfectly within your right. But you do want to take advantage of our state dollars. And we understand the importance of that. And we respect it. It's a good business decision. We're not having these rates at 1.5% because we think that we have businesses that are less than. It's a good business decision to increase cash flow to say, I really want to buy this business. I only need $1.5 million from this loan at 1.5%. It's a business decision, and we're able to help businesses make those decisions. For the last 18 months, we were able to do almost $16 million in loans to minority and women-owned businesses across the state of Ohio. We were able to do, now if you qualify for more than one product, we were able to do that for you. So if you could qualify for our Women Business Enterprise loan at $500,000, and you also qualified for our micro loan at $45,000 at 0% interest, you got about economic development. It's about creating an impact within the communities that we serve and how we're able to continue to support that. So what I see in the next 5 years that actually transcends to the next 50 years is the ability to, one, increase the amount of dollars that we have in our programs to help our businesses. Number two is the fact that we're able to still do them at rates that are economically sound from a business decision perspective. But the third piece is really being able to move into the residential development space. Because again, there's so many projects that are going on just in Central Ohio. I see new projects coming up all the time. If there's a plot of grass, they're trying to put something on it. It's just that simple. And so the ability to see that those things are happening and moving towards in that direction.
Fantastic. So as we begin to think about economic development and the linkages, I heard Chief Womack talk a little bit about real estate and some of the opportunities there. And there's a direct tie between real estate, housing, and health. They are inextricably tied together. You know, I think, and I did want to mention this, there were some amazing statistics that Chief Womack actually had when she started, that she actually implemented more loans and actually helped more businesses within that first year, and it still keeps expanding, even from inception. And I really believe it's because you need someone who has a lens and can understand the scope of what's needed within that community. But the other thing I want to mention too is that wherever I was at across the state, I kept running into her everywhere across the state. So if I was in Toledo, she was in Toledo. If I was in Cincinnati, oh, there's Chief Womack. She was in Cincinnati. You know, she actually was at all these various different locations, making sure that she understood the scope, the breadth, and the landscape. So when you start to think about those needs, you know, development is really working diligently to try to make those things happen. But as we pivot here into health, you know, there's a ton of work that's being done. Yes. When we think about that, because we have to cover that, we need to be able to think about how all of those different areas tie back to your health and how those things actually are being implemented. I know there's a couple of things that are currently happening in Trumbull and Mahoney counties. I know there's a plenty of things that are occurring that you are involved in, Dr. Poe, both from Youngstown State, but also from the Links and also Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. So as we begin to think about those things specifically from a health lens, and some of the things that we have been working on over the next 5 years or so, are there any things that you think that we need to target, and I know you are the recipient of a recent, very large grant too, that will help to implement that over the next couple of years? And how can we mobilize that as a collective in partnership with the NAACP to get that done? Any recommendations or things that you think that would be significant in that space?
So yes. There was so much discussed, I had to start writing notes down so I wouldn't forget. Because there's a couple of things. If we can all agree that place matters, yes, where you live makes a difference. The question I have for you is this. Is there a grocery store within 5 miles of where you live? 2 miles? 10 miles? How far do you have to travel to get to the local grocery store?
Can we have a show of hands just so we have an idea if you have a grocery store within 5 miles of your home?
10 miles. 2 miles? 2 miles? Okay. The reason why I ask that is because we talk about place matters. Do you realize from one street to the street across or 2 streets over can make a difference in your life expectancy? Simply because whether or not you have access to a grocery store, fresh fruits and vegetables. Now, I'm just going to make an assumption that nobody ate in Chicago.
I know I did.
I'm just going to make that assumption because, you know, it wasn't fresh fruits and vegetables, right? But the reality is this. You are what you eat. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but this is the truth. If only place you can get fresh fruits and vegetables at the convenience store, will you pay $1 for a banana? So are you likely to eat that banana? Absolutely not. So I say that because what we need in the next couple of years is we need you, all of you, to get involved in what's happening with your local health department and your boards of health. Why is that important? Because they, in theory, control what happens or don't happen within your region. Now, I know what you're thinking. I can't go to the city council meetings. I can't go to the board of health. I can't go all these meetings because every night there'll be something going on. Okay, maybe that's true. But you do need to figure out what group is doing something that you care about. And when I say care about, I mean in the sense of your health. Because guess what? We only got one body unless you clone them. Or you borrow somebody else's, okay? Or make up, buy some pieces. But in theory, we only have one body, right? And if you don't take care of that one body that you have, what's going to happen? Let me rephrase that. As we get wiser, things don't work like they used to. Yes, we can agree with that, right? And if only you knew now, then what you know now, when you was younger, maybe you might have done some things differently. We can all agree on that. So now we have an opportunity because we know better. But it's those young people behind us who, you know, they think they're going to stay young forever, right? And at the precious age of 28, you know, life is good. It's still good. Things are still working just right. And so we know what comes as you get wiser, right? And so we have to think about how we can be a resource to those who we love, those who we don't know, but those who think about who will be here long after we're gone. Why is that important? Because we are all involved in some type of civic or social, faith-based group in some fashion or form. And we have to ask them, beg them, and sometimes push them, that means us. We have to be willing to do something that may or may not directly help us today, but will make a lasting impact on our future. And so I encourage you to get involved in the things that our young people are interested in. And I'm going to tell you right now, because I live with a young person, I don't always agree with what they eat, I don't always agree with what they wear, what they listen to, and everything else. Or they're all, as we say, they're always on their computers and always, they're doing everything what we think they should be doing. But we got to find a way to have those conversations to say, what are you interested in? How can I support you? Because if we do that, that will in turn help to create a healthier environment where we can all eat well, we can move more, and most importantly, we can have fresh air, a clean environment, a safe environment that will support our transportation, our education, and most importantly, provide economic opportunities, because green spaces create jobs, clean air creates jobs, and we can go on and on. So that is my encouragement, to really look within yourself, within your community, your neighborhood, your next door neighborhood, the people you don't like, all of them, they all have a place to come with us, figure out how do we make it better for us today and for the people who don't even know about that will be here when we're gone. So thank you.
So what would those, if you had one item, one, you had stated getting involved with young people.
Yes.
Would that be the one,
That would be,
the key one?
I think the most important thing is to figure out what is needed in your circle. And sometimes it may or may not directly benefit you, but it may benefit those who will come behind you. So I say start there, because if you understand what the need, that health need is, then you can say, well, what can I do to contribute and make to help make a difference? Sometimes it's your voice, sometimes it's your funds, sometimes it's your expertise. It really just going to depend on what your circle looks like.
Absolutely.
And how you can invite other people in it.
I heard Dr. Poe talk a little bit about the interest of young people and the things that they do, and I think it's no surprise to anyone in this room that tech is a huge thing for our young people. But not just tech, the intersections of tech and with what needs to happen from an intergenerational perspective for those individuals who are elders, those who are currently baby boomers, those who are at the intersection of Gen X and millennials, and those who are in Gen Z. And then of course we have the super young people like my babies, Gen Alpha. So when we start to think about that and kind of how that then drives back to economic development, I'm wondering, Sherry, if you can talk a little bit about what you see as those catalysts or those catalytic moments that we're going to need to have over the next year, and some of the things that you think, both from a collective, and then I heard someone talk previously about advocacy. You know, we kind of talk a little bit about the trifecta as it's affectionately known, and that's the advocacy arm. Each and every one of you in this room are part of that advocacy arm because you represent the NAACP. You're out there, you're on the front lines, you're doing the work, you're getting it done. So thank you for that. But it's only as strong and as good as the amplification. So if the work's being done, but no one knows that it's happening, then it's not known. So then people can't spread and they can't be a part of it. And that's part of what Ohio Black Expo does to ensure that things are amplified and that it stretches out and reaches everyone. But then when we get to the activation part of it, that's what we, the collective, do to ensure that the activation happens. So from an activation perspective too, I think you are a dynamic expert in that space. So wondering what your thoughts are there. I know it's a lot.
Thank you. Happy to be here today. I am a proud member of the NAACP. I'm also the leader of an organization that is a member of the State of Ohio Collective. So I'm wearing many hats today. I want to pivot back to business and then go to tech because I know my brother here is also going to talk about tech. But, you know, we all wonder what can we do to help black businesses. I don't know if you all know, but 96% of the black-owned businesses in the U.S. are solopreneurs. They have either zero salaries because there's a startup that's trying to make their way, or someone that's been on their grind and really can't pay themselves, or they have one salary at the most. So that is almost every black business in this country is one person trying to grind it out. Now, I'm not saying that's not helpful and that someone that has their side hustle while they work their 9 to 5 isn't helping their household, because it is. But we can do so much more. We are naturally innovative. We are naturally innovative, and we are creative, and we are strong and resilient. But one of the things that we can do as everyday people to help with that is, there was a study through the Harvard Business Review that showed that 70 households that have an annual income of $75,000 or more only spend 3 to 5% of our money with black-owned businesses. That's horrible. So let me give you an analogy. Let's say my husband is the breadwinner and I'm a stay-at-home mom, okay? My husband makes $1,000 a week. That's a lot of money. You can do a lot with that, right? But if my husband is making $1,000 a week, he gets paid every Friday, he comes home and says, baby, here's $50 for you to take care of the household. Go ahead and get the groceries, take care of what the kids need, you know, do whatever, pay the bills. Here's your $50. Now I'm going to take this $9.50 and I'm going to spread it everywhere else. Can my household survive on that?
No. That's the black community.
Can I thrive? I can't thrive. I'm barely surviving, right? Probably going to be homeless. So our community, since the fall of all the great Black Wall Streets that we've had, and some of you, I'm not assuming any ages, but some of you may have lived through those, you know, those eras. Since the fall of that, since those were destroyed, and remember, it was intentional, okay? We've been in this position decade after decade after decade, wondering why we can't have generational wealth. So we all are to blame for a lot of that, because we tend to think that other people's ice is colder when it's not. And so I just implore you all, now here's what can be done, what we all can do. So let's just make the assumption that all of us in here have around that household income every year. And even if you don't, just do what you can. If we all increase our spending, those that are making $75,000 or more per year, increase our spending from 5% to 10%, it would create 1 million jobs. That's not that much. That's not that hard to do. Even if you just love to eat and you say, I'm gonna, eat out a little more often at a black restaurant, but we have so much more. Try to make sure that your attorney is black. Try to make sure that your doctor is black, because these offices tend to hire black people. So, and it's all about creating more jobs to help with that situation of generational wealth. There are a lot of us, especially our young people, who no one will hire because of how they look. And they make the assumption that they're not intelligent, that they don't have good work ethic, and it's not so. So we all can make that slight change. Look at your consumables. In my household, we use a toilet paper called Leafy, which is actually headquartered here in Columbus, Ohio. It's spelled L-E-A-F-Y, and I'm sure they deliver. We get a delivery, I think, every 3 weeks. And so our toilet paper is a black-owned company. It's bamboo. That sounds harsh, but it's really soft. It's made out of bamboo.
Take your word for it.
Yes, it's bamboo, and there are no chemicals, so the toilet paper is actually a light color tan. It's not white, but it's healthy, and it's good for the environment, and it's helping this company to really grow. They started during the pandemic. Our laundry detergent is True Laundry Detergent. That's a black-owned company out of, I think, Georgia. And we've been using that exclusively for about 8 years now. And I remember after the first or second year that we started using it, the owner put out a video just thanking everyone, because it went from being the 3 people that started the company to over 100 employees. So you understand that you can make slight changes in order to increase that. Yes, sir.
What was the percentage of households that's made over 75,000?
The average right now of spending with black-owned businesses is 3 to 5%. But if we can increase that to 10%, so if everyone can endeavor to just double what they spend, or go further, if you're able, we spend more than 10% with black-owned businesses. Just try, look for what you can. And even if you're not, a lot of people say, well, I live out in the country, I don't have anything around me. Get online and order things online. You can get the things that I talked about to be a subscription, so it's just delivered to you. You don't even have to go to the store to get that stuff. So that's something that is very important. When we support black-owned businesses, if we can help these solopreneurs get at least 1 employee, that can be transformational, and then they link up with the state and get even more capital that they need, get certified, then they can do more.
So, quick question for you is specific to the same question within the year. What can we do from an economic development perspective within the year? I think you gave an excellent example of that. Would that be the answer? Is increase your spending, your household spending, 10% of your household spending, commit to doing it with
to
black,
a minimum. That should be the minimum.
to a minimum of black-owned, not just black-led, black-owned businesses, because there is a difference.
There is a difference.
So for those of you who like adult beverages, right over there in Youngstown, Warren, Trumbull County, you can spend all that money with Hannah and Dope Cider House. Yes, and you can have all of that black-owned female business.
I think the other thing that I would suggest is, if you have a problem with a black-owned business, don't just write off black businesses and say, see, that's why I don't even, because that's what a lot of people do, and it's not fair. You'll go into a Walmart or a store like that and have a bad experience, and the manager will say, here, let me give you a coupon, or sometimes they don't even do that. You'll be bad for a week, and you'll tell everybody you know, and then next week you're right back in that store. So please, if you have a problem, even take a moment and say, you know what, I really want to support you, but your employee was rude to me, or, I really want to come back here, but X, Y, and Z. So just take that extra time, and they usually will really appreciate that. I've done that quite a bit.
Can you give suggestions about how you can encourage black businesses to take that lead, to quit being the hobby and be the businesses? Because you get a lot of people say, I don't want everybody in my business, but you want us to support you, but you're not willing to take it to the next level that we can say, okay, I want to do this.
It's hard, really, because if we're not supporting those businesses and they're not generating enough income to take that leap, you end up in this space. I've been there, you know, where you really want to. You're passionate about this thing. You can see the potential, but you have to pay the bills. You have to keep a roof over your head, and you don't have sometimes the capital that you need in order to get inventory if you do have
Would
problems.
incubators be a good way to go?
Incubators are a great way. Incubators are a great way. I just saw, who lives in Cleveland? I just saw the Glen, is it Glen Village? I think that's amazing what Larice Purnell is doing up there. And we need to do that here in Columbus. It doesn't make any sense that we don't have something like that. I know in Dayton, this isn't a black-owned place, but it is somewhat of an incubator. But is it West W Social?
Yes.
They have several black businesses in there, and that area is thriving. So incubators, I think, are wonderful and usually can help those businesses get over that hump because you get some general support, you get an office, that type of thing. So, but even, let me just throw some more numbers out. At the Ohio Black Expo last year, our vendors reported, we had 100 vendors, they reported sales of about $250,000. This year, that increased slightly. We made room for more vendors. We had about 156. I think 13 of them were non-black, but based on government services and things like that. They reported sales of about $294,000. That's in 2 days. So you see how if you just take a little bit of extra effort to support our own, the big difference that can make. So I just really encourage everyone to do that. Should I pivot the text? Okay.
So bear with me 1 second. I know there's a ton of questions, but we have one more presentation we need to get to. We're going to come back to you, Dr. Forward. We're going to come back to you over here. And we're going to come back over here. I think it was Ms. Bambro. A couple of things that we need to think about too, I think, and I see you, Ida. When we are thinking about capacity, though, and what's being done, and I just want to put it out there, are you also not just investing in the for-profit businesses? Are you spending your dollars in the nonprofit organizations that are doing the work to make it happen? Now, I can tell you, because I know personally, that contributions and donations to nonprofits, both 501c3s and the others that are black-led, they're not coming in from our elders. They're not coming in from Gen X, and they're definitely not coming in. Nope. I'm sorry.
You heard me say nope.
I know. They're not. So when you have an organization like the Ohio Black Expo or the State of Ohio Collective, have you made a contribution to make that happen? Because guess what? The work's going to continue, and we're going to do it regardless.
And we're all volunteers.
Every single last one of us.
Just like, NAACP, so you understand.
Right. But the thing is, if we want them to grow, and you want the advocacy to be able to exist, and you don't want the struggle to then continue, because we're all freedom fighters, we all are about the struggle, you have to also be willing to contribute in that way to nonprofits, similarly that she's speaking about specifically for the for-profit businesses. So, the church, a lot of them are hurting right now. They're not receiving their tithes and offering. That would be 10% that they previously were receiving. But then on the philanthropic arm, you're not seeing the support for the black-led nonprofits or those works. I'll give you a perfect example. The United Way of Stark County did not give, that's Canton, did not give to a black-led business for over 7 years. Not one. Dr. Goggins, who's over there, went with me when we asked them why not one black nonprofit received a dime. Not one. They're all struggling to do the work, the things that we're all doing right now. And those dollars were coming in. Out of $5.2 million, not one dime. And they decided that they were going to make some inroads. The inroads was, and actually the numbers were $100,000 for the black community.
That's it. They've been doing it.
$100,000 for the entire black community in Stark County. That's how much. That had to be divided amongst all those nonprofits. So while we're thinking about making those contributions to Black-led businesses, I wouldn't be a fundraiser if I didn't say all of the nonprofits that are represented need your help and support in order to ensure that they're going to thrive and survive. Because a lot of those contributions and things that happen for for-profit businesses, we can go to nonprofit entities to get the work done, who are family foundations and the like, but guess what? The same people who are making decisions on corporate boards frequently are the same ones making the decisions for the nonprofit boards. And you're not seeing people that look like this room actually on those allocation committees. We need to start advocating and lobbying for that space too, that as we're looking for capacity for our businesses, that we're looking for capacity for our nonprofits too. And I would be remiss also if I didn't talk about the Task Force for Best Academic Practices for Black Students and talk about the needs there. Do you know that there are not many entities who want to give the $100,000 that is required in order to address the needs with a Black lawyer? That $100,000 will ensure that the discrepancy, that disconnect that's happening between African American students who now they've lowered the academic standards down to 54.5% statewide. That's the academic standard. The standard for white students, 81%.
Wow.
It's 81.
84.3.
It's now 84.3? I stand corrected. It's 84.3. So when you start thinking about how we survive and thrive over the next few years, we've got to get there. And conversations like this become instrumental and important in standing on the apex of Gen X and Millennial. I know that's what's needed, but everyone doesn't pivot into the space to have that kind of inclusion. Think about all of your NAACP units. How many of you have on your executive board have a Gen Xer? How many of you have at least 2 Gen Xers? How many of you have a millennial? And how many of you have a Gen Zer? Okay? I know you do. But that's the way that you train, that you coach, and you pivot into that space. And part of the ways that they're going to help is they're going to help lead into tech. They're going to help to keep you current. They're going to help engage in that space, which is a lot of the work that Brian's doing in San Francisco and out there in Silicon Valley as we build into the heartland. So as you begin to think about what needs to happen over the next year, here in Ohio, which is your home state, what do you think we need to do?
Well, there's 3 major things I think we need to do. The first thing, we need to get the word out about all these free resources that we can actually use to build our businesses, right? And I'm so, you want to give her a little round of applause? She's like making sure, and it's true, she's been at all these different events, right? She's making sure that she does the outreach to make sure that you all have access to funds so that you can grow your businesses, right? But there's other resources you should look into too, right? I've actually, again, you're over the Ohio Tech Career Program that does a free reimbursement for training that occurs. If you can't actually pay up front, the federal government actually has this program called WIOA, where you go to the Ohio Jobs and Family Services Office. If you make less than $32,000, they give you free training that you need for your business, right? Or for yourself, if you just want to get a better paying job, right? You can get all the tech training you want from the state of Ohio. And all tech training, all tech jobs, they all pay more, right? So again, the demand is high. The demand is huge. I don't know if you know about Coursera.com, right? But free training. So all your Ivy League schools, they actually created this website called Coursera. It's like a course, course, but then RA at the end of it. They actually record all of their lectures and put them on the web. They initially created it for
Can you
third
spell
world.
it? Can you spell it?
COURSERA.
Is it possible, you know, there's so many websites like you say, just need like an email or a sheet of paper so you can provide that to us, so that we can click on it and
We'll
go
put it
to
on the website.
Yeah.
We'll put it on the website,
Okay.
But again,
on all three websites.
Coursera actually provides the Ivy League schools and many other schools record their lectures and they actually put it on the website for free. They put the examples, like coursework, so you can actually get the equivalent of a degree without having to pay for the degree, right? And if you're in tech, they don't care whether you have a degree or not. They just want to see if you can actually do the work, right? All free, right? There's a bunch of different applications. You know, I live in San Francisco, you know, Silicon Valley, and a big company there is Salesforce. Salesforce, and they make CRM software, customer relationship management software. All your salespeople use Salesforce. They give everyone a free license if you just want to learn it. I work a lot in the Agile community, and then one of the major tools is called Jira. They give you a free, there's all these software tools out where you can just download the license for free. You can go on YouTube and actually learn how to use it. They all have
Call that
instructions.
YouTube University.
Yes.
You ever hear it?
Use it.
Say that? Everything's on
Free, right? It's absolutely free. And so again, there's a plethora of free resources that you can take advantage of. I just found out about this organization called ECDI, right? It's the Economic Community Development Institute, right? And you get the statistics on black-owned businesses. Most of the black-owned businesses are women-led, right? And ECDI, not only do they give low-cost loans, they give training, they let you use your space, you know, like a Regis Center where you can have meetings at their office, right, for free, right? But the other thing that happens with ECDI is they have this Women's Institute where they specifically look for women-owned businesses, nurture them, give them all the resources, referrals they need to grow so that you can actually expand, right?
So, Brian, I do want to say quickly that ECDI is great, but I do want to also mention Aventi Enterprises, which is in Columbus, Ohio. Aventi Enterprises is black-owned. Deanna Barnett is one of our collective core team members, and they're doing a great job there. I also want to mention that there are other resources if you look at Huku in the Huku app, and you can actually see HUKUAPP.com. And we know the founder and owner of that app because she's sitting right here at the table. Can you say it again? Huku app, HUKUAPP.com. So you can identify these black-led businesses. I'm not trying to knock ECDI, they're great, but Aventi Enterprises, which is in Columbus, again, when you're thinking about what Sherry mentioned, it's the same thing.
And also the U. The U is another.
Yes.
They just got fully funded, so they're doing a lot of great work.
Yes. And you know, I did want to say really quickly here, because I think YOU.
I got a question.
Or remind me of
Okay, but hey, hang on. We're going to take everyone's questions in the order that they asked, though. I did want to mention, though, when we start thinking about the work that's being done and how we leverage it, many of you may not know that the collective partnered with the NAACP to make a very large ask for the ARPA funds. We asked for $69 million. And the NAACP had a total number of about $4.5 million in there. Guess how much the NAACP received for the state conference? We didn't receive anything from ARPA funds. Now, we were told that that's a large ask, that it was too much to ask for, that the collective and other entities were not known. But then we looked at how much Habitat for Humanity obtained. We looked at other entities that were known and how much they obtained. So it's really not about the amount of the ask. And I'll tell you, there were certain departments within the governor's cabinet, but they sent back $10 million.
No.
$10 million was sent back. So we need to start really looking at it. The collective, we actually have an entire world that was built on our app that's currently still in development. But what you can see on it is you can see how much every single city received in the ARPA funds, and then how much was allocated from both the city and the county, and how it was spent, because it connects to the actual legislation. So you can see who passed what and how much was allocated there, because we care about that. We want to know.
As an educator.
Yes.
So, put on educator hat for a second. As a millennial educator, educating Gen Zers and Gen Alphas at this current iteration, one of the questions that was asked was tangible things that we can do.
Yes.
So all of the information that we are disseminating now, and these websites and things of that nature, are going to be on the website itself. I have gotten a lot of questions today about how to access the information on the websites, access the live streams, access this information in general, right? So if we're putting all of this in 3 centralized locations, get your Gen Z and Gen Alpha babies and teenagers, right? And young adults, because a reminder, like Gen Z, they are legally grown as well. They do that. They legally have bills and rent and everything.
Don't fight it, y'all. Don't fight it.
But get your Gen Z, your Gen Z and your Gen Alpha, and some of your millennials that are not working, some of your millennial babies, to take you to the website to access the information. 2 things happen in that moment. You are learning from them, right? Because education is the partnership. You are learning how to navigate a virtual world that, whether we like it or not, we are already in, right? But you are learning practical and tangible steps to access it. And they are learning how the economics and sociological dynamics of the Black community work, because they have to access the information. And so both of you are teaching and learning and bonding with each other. And that is a level of cultural competency and education that does not have to happen in a classroom. This can happen at y'all's table, right? This can happen over a meal. And so that is a practical next step. All of this information, get someone to show you how to access it so that they can learn the information that you now have, and you can learn how to access the information that they can do with a good old YouTube University.
And I want to say, don't run from tech. Don't be afraid from tech or afraid of tech. You can't, because it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And if we're slowly but surely getting left behind, from the young to the old.
Actually, it's not slow.
Yeah.
No, it's done.
It's
done.
It's only
done.
5 of us in Silicon Valley. It's 5.
And so one recommendation that we are definitely going to make, and we are happy to do ongoing training at any given time. We are here for it. We are your partner. We are here to ensure that that occurs in every possible way. And each and every person here are educators. So we're going to do everything we know to do to ensure that this happens and occurs. I see you, President Roberts.
Something that I think Professor Winter can help me on this. Sometimes government does not ask for state or federal dollars because it's one-time dollars.
Yep.
It's not sustainable.
Yep.
So, and I'm going to ask you to educate Canton so we all can understand what money it was they gave back. But then I thought, well, sometimes government doesn't ask for money because they only want dollars that are sustainable. And so it's a one-time. Now you get yourself all bent out of shape, create all these jobs and all these things to serve those dollars. The dollars go away. Now what are you going to do? Lay people off? Or you're going to have to go into your own budget and pick it up? Is that basically?
Well, there were two things that happened with those funds. So the first thing that happened was They returned the funds, but prior to doing that, many of the black businesses and nonprofits that received funds from the county were receiving community development block grant dollars, so CDBG dollars. They had almost like an earmark, if you would, that they were receiving it annually. The first thing they did is they moved them over for the ARPA or CARES Act funding. So they received that. They didn't get the CDBG dollars. So then, now that all those dollars are expired, they're no longer in the loop. So they were kicked out of the loop. So to your point, President Roberts, yes, it's one-time cost, and we know for a fact that they're not going to be able to sustain that. So they would have had to have had something that would have been sustainable. Perfect example, if the Ohio Black Expo were to receive, I don't know, maybe $250,000, $500,000 in a startup ramp-up amount, they would be able to not only have headcount and salaries, they also would be able to have and purchase, and we just talked about this today. My suggestion was purchase golf carts. If you purchase the golf carts and they own them, they can then rent them to other entities across Columbus. And as they're renting the golf carts out, that then becomes earned income for the Ohio Black Expo. So then they now have an asset that they can actually use for earned income, and they can grow from there. Same thing can happen with the Ohio Collective. If we actually had the amount and the capacity to be able to build those incubators inside of each one of the cities that are currently not in that space and serving those groups. So think about, you have Bounce Innovation Hub in Akron, but you don't have one that's Black-led. You also have an incubator that's close right there in between Youngstown and Stark County, but you don't have a Black-led one in Stark County. Same thing happens in multiple different spaces, but you know, I think the good news is there are other groups who are looking out from a minority perspective, but not from a decidedly black perspective. And that's where the things kind of differentiate a bit. And I saw you with your hand up.
Okay. My question is to you, and I know you say you live in
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
See, what pertains to you don't pertain to me. I live in Sandusky, Ohio. First thing I didn't hear you say was about, you know, you said you want people to save money, have businesses. First of all, you got to get your credit right before you can even think about money for business. And then you got to learn how to pay yourself first before you even think about having a business. And then when you said, you know, they need to invest, you have to invest in yourself. I have my own business. I'm since retired. Number one, when you have a business, instead of going out buying the latest and greatest of this, that, and the other, when you go to somebody else's business, they want the same thing. They want that money so that they can pay their rent. You need to start reinvesting in your own business instead of going to buy that. I know they say relax and prepare now. Instead of, because I'm a barber, instead of buying that little thing of whatever you need, activate or relax, buy big two, because you know what? That big jar, or whatever you're going to do is going to take care of 4 or 5 heads. That's your money. You have to reinvest in yourself.
Buy a black-owned business.
Right.
Yes.
Buy a big one from the
Buy a big one. I'm since retired, 44 years old. You. What do you young people want? You guys talk real good. So damn fast. You don't understand what you're saying. Break it down.
Aretha Franklin.
Because you know what?
Literally.
We want to do it.
Aretha Franklin.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Aretha Franklin.
Find out what it means to
With
me.
all the respect you need.
Okay, but
I need you to break it down. See, I have grandchildren your age. I have grandchildren your age. And then have a granddaughter that's 17 years old and has a social degree in child psychology. But she lives where? Germany. We are so far behind in our education that this sounds good. But my granddaughter's going on where she's far beyond where I was at 17. So what is it that you want us to do? And I know you want us to give you respect, but you know when you have to be there. You can't be late going to work. You have to be on that job. Sometimes you have to work 6 days a week, 7 days a week. I know they said barbershops is closing on Sunday. On Monday, guess what? I was there. You got to be open. You can't be coming late because if you come late, you find somebody else. You have to be consistent. But what is it that you want us to do? I know y'all want us to move out the way.
no, that's not true.
Pass the
She had her hand up.
We can't hear.
We can't hear. You gave the acronym, you gave ECP. We over here trying to figure out what's
BCDI.
That's the economic, community development.
E, C, D, I.
But I want to give you one other one to go along with it, that we want you to write down,
Yes.
because it's our partner. It's Aventi.
Aventi. A, V,
B is a boy.
V as in Valerie, E as in everybody, N as in no, T as in teacher, I as in impossible.
And there's one more big resource that I want to make sure that everyone knows about. And AI is like the greatest thing that's like.
Don't run from it.
ChatGPT, y'all.
I'm telling you,
Right.
like I'm using it exclusively. I have an AI up on my phone, on my computers all day long, and my productivity has increased by at least threefold since using it.
And another thing that will help us, and I'm free to tell us,
No.
That's not what I said.
We call you,
Name calling.
we call you our sister.
okay, what I'm saying is, what we should do,
And just so y'all know, I am qualified. I'm a Carl Cameron. I look young. I'm a Carl Cameron member. Let's not go there. Let's not play the games, all right?
I didn't know what you said.
I don't know. Because I go online and I sign up. Everything you guys have. Because I'm interested in learning what you guys are offering.
Well,
And then I give it back to my.
yes, we are happy to have it, and I see that we had Dr. Forward and then we had Ida. Dr. Forward? Okay.
Speaking of Stark County,
Yes.
did they ever tell you why they sent the money back? Because I asked the commissioner. They got nasty and Flamingo.
I have not heard an answer that I'm comfortable responding with.
But here's where you can be proactive. Understand the dynamics. So you go in there intelligently, and they give you a dumb answer. You say, no, that's not the right way. So hear what they're saying, understand the process, understand the terminology, then challenge them. You are a citizen, you are a taxpayer. They should explain to you how to use the money, but you can't go in there half-stepping. You need to know what you're talking about. So I would use their brain power to understand it, then go in there as a group and demand an explanation.
So there was another question at this table. Yes.
I appreciate, it's fantastic for me to see this generation younger than the boomers. I'm on the tail end of the boomers.
So you're a Gen Xer.
Okay, I said it's fantastic to see. This is my first NAACP conference, so I'm just elated to be here. And it's fantastic to see all the talent and knowledge that's here. Wonderful, appreciate it. I have the good fortune of working with a software company. I use Salesforce on a regular basis. I love this stuff, what you're saying, right? So I'm embracing it. What I will say though, right, I would love to see all the attendees get an email with your websites in there. And we can go, some of the folks can go to their younger people and get that. But I like to get things right away. I don't want to have to ask somebody, I don't want someone to have to go somewhere, ask their nephew, and they may get around to it in a couple of weeks. I just, maybe very simply requesting that all the attendees of this, because you got our emails, right? To send these 3 links, you said 3 websites.
We're gonna put it on the NAACP website. So if you go to the NAACP Ohio website, if you can't remember, you don't want to write it down, you just type in Ohio NAACP.
I got it, because I asked you about
So,
it.
Under what tab?
well, I'm saying if you type in Google Ohio NAACP, it'll come up with OHNAACP.com, and we'll put all the links on there, so that way it can be right there as well. So that way you
can
And you
easily
remember I
have
asked you in the hallway for that website, so I got the website.
Yes, and we
But
will,
is
we
it
will
there
stick
now?
it, no,
Okay.
it's not, but we
Okay.
will put it right there, give us 48 hours,
Okay.
and 48 to 96.
Okay. This week.
Let's be reasonable.
This week. A week.
Yeah, we will, we will have it on there, but in addition to that, we are piloting an app. That app we will have up and going, and you will be able to see all the things that we did here. You'll be able to go down, you'll be able to see the panelists, you'll be able to see about the conversations, you'll be able to see all of that within the app. So that will be there as well too. So that way we can keep it moving. Now I know we are way over time. Way over time, because guess what? So what else can we provide? Any other questions we can answer before we wrap here? Yes.
Yeah,
Hi, Councilman.
my question was that you provided a lot of good information around Black businesses and resources for them. But do you have any resources for nonprofits that they can look up and get resources as well?
Actually, can I make a statement?
And I love Silicon Valley, because you all, Silicon Valley, they love to give money to nonprofits.
That's all they do.
I know,
Nobody.
I've been awarded a couple of dollars from my nonprofit from Silicon Valley.
I am going to use that good church training that I got to answer your question and bring this to a conclusion. This is a good time, in the same way that you are all active in your chapters, this is a good time to join the collective think tank. This is a good time to join the State of Ohio collective think tank, because what is actively happening on a consistent basis is that we are constantly in a position where we are finding funds, right? Not just loans, grants, right? Things of that nature for all of the different umbrellas that we name, including Black businesses. And so is there one centralized location that necessarily comes from in this current iteration? No, but have there been entities that as a collective we have been able to pull based on our network and those that we are in community with to bring those funds to the nonprofits necessary? Yes. And so this is another way. We're talking about investing in Black community. We're talking about investing in cultural competency and education. We're talking about making sure that our funding makes it to our community so that we can thrive. The first step to do that is to join the collective, y'all. We right here.
I mean all of those, so I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, and one other thing is, do not sleep on your public dollars that have gone to your library.
Yes, Lord.
I call the library. I'm a lifelong Acronite 330-643-9000 is the number for the main library. I call them because the Foundation Center computer is right there. The Foundation Center computer, I tell them exactly what I want. I say, you know what, I'm looking for things specific for education. I need something that's going to fund Akron, or I need something that's going to fund Cincinnati. And then I'm looking for something that they give an average grant between $5,000 and $10,000. And guess what? They send me back an email, and it has all those categories, but you have to be specific. I want it in a spreadsheet so I can manipulate the information, right? And I can see exactly the categories. But I want to know all the foundations that give in the state of Ohio. And then if it's still not what I'm looking for, I need to know everything in Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky. And then if I really want to get a little sassy with them, I'll ask for the entire nation. And then they'll give me everything. But that whole world will tell you at least who's funding in that space. But it's not enough to just apply, because guess what? They don't know you. It normally takes anywhere between 3 to 10 years in order to truly establish a fundraising relationship. That fundraising relationship, they have to know you. They have to trust you. They have to know that you're going to be proper stewards of those dollars. And so within that time frame, that's when you have to start building the relationship. And you have to start asking for it. Now, I'm a little bold. I ask for astronomical amounts of money. I'm unapologetic with that too, because I know that those numbers are justifiable. But a methodical way to approach and to do it would be, you know what? I'm going to try to ask for year one, $1,000 and see what happens. And hopefully by year 3, I get it. By year 4, now that the relationship's there, I'm going to ask for $1,500. I'll probably get that too if the relationship has been stewarded. And then all the way by the time you get to year 10,
hopefully you will have grown that to $10,000. But all of that's going to be based on your relationship, based on the capacity of that entity, but each and every one of you have to do your homework and know what's reasonable for that entity to give to you and to provide to you. Because sometimes the numbers are just outlandish and don't make sense. Other times, if you justify them and you can evidence, prove, and adjust them and adapt to that area, it will allow you to be able to secure those funds. Okay, so I think we have to close, so thank you all so much.